Hello everybody, Jim here, and I'm here to teach you how to make a painting just using basic materials that you might have just lying around the house. So I know these days it might be tough to get your hands on some fancy art materials, so I try to just grab some things you might have laying around. So I just have like Crayola washable markers here, right? Pretty basic stuff. No nonsense kind of used paintbrushes here. Again, nothing fancy at all. I have my water, I have paper towels, and it looks like I have a Happy Halloween pencil here because my other pencils, they just look too fancy. And I didn't want to give you the idea that you have to use a fancy pencil, right? Look at this pencil. That is an F pencil, right? Who's even heard of that? Okay, you learn about that in art school, but not today. Today we're going to use Happy Halloween #2 pencil. And then of course I have something to look at. So I just grabbed a picture, kind of simple in a way, and I'll explain in a minute why it's a simple picture of some flowers in a field, right? Because when I go on my walk every day, I look at lots of flowers and I'm inspired by them. So I didn't see that on my walk, but I did see color very similar. And then I have paper. This is maybe the only place I'm going to be a bit of a stickler. Just don't use like copy paper or printer paper, right? Because it will be too thin and it might just kind of like wash away. So something a little thicker would be good. This is a little bit fancy watercolor paper, but construction paper would work fine too. So that's the deal with the paper. Okay. So basically, I'm going to try to get this onto this using basic materials. So the first step, what I have to do is I have to make a landscape. So how do I do that? Okay, well, if we look here, there is a line, right? Kind of an imaginary line, but it's a line, right? It's not perfect, but we see some kind of separation between the sky and the earth. Do we know what that's called? If you guessed horizon line, you would be correct. It is the horizon line. So look at this, no ruler, right? No ruler. I kind of make like little sketchy lines, not just like one long line, right? I'm kind of sketching it across. An imperfect line. Is it straight? Kinda, but not perfect, right? We're not going for perfection here. Just making some guidelines here. Believe it or not, if I were to fill up this with color and then this with color up top, I would have a very simple landscape. So if you're onto the beach, right, you could just do some blues here for water and then some other blues for the sky, or maybe it's sunset, maybe you do pinks, and you'd have a landscape, right? But I'm not doing that. I'm not doing a beach scene because today I'm inspired by these flowers. But yeah, that's the horizon line. So what's on the horizon line? Well, we have some trees. And I am not able to see individual trees. I'm just able to see kind of like a blob, right? You see this blob? There's the blob here. Same thing. The blob on the right side is a bit more jagged, more pointed. So look, wow. I might have just convinced you that I know how to draw with 2 lines, maybe 3, right? That's all it took. Very, very simple, right? I'm just making guidelines here. I'm not going for this exactly. That's where a lot of us get stuck because we want to make this exact. And us perfectionists out there, we really suffer sometimes when we make art. But I'm going to free you of that because we're using markers today. So there will not be perfection here, right? But we are just trying to make something and feel a little creative, which I think is very important. So as far as lines go, that's it. So let's say goodbye to Mr. Halloween Pencil. We're not going to be using him anymore today. The rest of the time is basically I'm going to fill in with color. So for me, it's always easiest to start with the darkest area. So if you look on that photo on the left, the darkest area is, yes, that's right. It is these dark trees in the background. So let me put that on. Now that's just black. The funny thing is when black marker dries out, it looks kind of green. So you got kind of lucky right off the bat. See, fill that in. Oop, that's a mistake, but that's okay. Remember, it's imperfection. And we're going to be painting today like the Impressionists who they kind of weren't so worried about all those straight lines, right? They weren't trying to make things look like photographs per se. They were just trying to give you the impression of a feeling of being there. Ooh, this says green to me, right? Green cap. But look at that, some kid mixed it up. But that's okay. You know what, I'm gonna go with it. Why am I adding color to the black? Well, because I'm gonna show you a secret trick that you can do with markers. I'm gonna add water to it. I'm adding green on top too. That was what I originally intended, but some of that red got mixed in. But look at that, green and red. Actually looks kind of nice. Made kind of a brownish color. Okay, where to next? I'm gonna leave that for now, because I'm gonna go in and kind of mix this in with the sky in a second. So, what color is the sky? Well, in this case, you're right, it is blue. And look at some of these markers are like really nice and almost brand new, and then some are kind of dry. But look at how there's like some clouds here. And look at, if I press kind of lightly with some of these dry markers, it's actually kind of nice. Okay, now this is where hopefully I blow your mind. A brush, right, obviously. And then water. Okay, raise your hand if you've ever done this before. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Do you know why I don't think a lot of people have done this? Because I've never done this before, and I've been teaching art for many years and making art pretty much my whole life, and I didn't realize until today that you could add water to marker. And look at that. Oh, check that out. When I put water right up against that mountain, look at what happened. All that color, that red, green, and black, kind of went into the sky. That's not bad. Not bad for markers, right? You know, if you have a watercolor set at home, you can do the same thing. It'll be a little easier, but I'm just trying to prove a point that, hey, you can use markers, right? If you have kids, they're probably all over the place, those markers, right? What am I doing here? Well, I was hoping maybe I could take off some of the color to lighten it up. Why? Because, well, the sky's a little lighter here. Not bad. Okay, that's actually pretty good. If I was done, right, I could say that this is Antarctic landscape, right? And there's all my snow. That was a bad joke. Now, let me get these flowers in here. Red or green, which one would you start with? Yes, I don't know either, but I'm going to go with red, because the red is just so kind of prominent. Now check it out, back here. Can't count flowers, right? Here we can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We can count flowers. Back here, can't count flowers. So, in my drawing, I shouldn't be able to count flowers, right? So, I'm holding the marker on its side too. Just kind of fill it in. Again, I thought it was important to use markers that were like the type you have at home. Running out, a little dry, just to show you it can still be done. Now down here, this is when the flowers start to kind of come out and show themselves a little bit more. Now notice too, as the flowers go further in the background, they get smaller. So up front, look at these three guys here. Those are the stars of the show, right? This one too. Let me pull out a couple here. Notice too, there are different shapes, right? Different shapes and sizes, right? Because nature is different shapes and sizes. The worst thing is to make everything exactly the same. Nothing's more boring than everything looking the same, because that is frankly just not how nature works. All right. Again, that looks kind of cool. And you're probably saying, oh, well, Jim's an artist. He makes it look easy. And you would be right. You know, part of my job is to make it look easy, but I'm teaching you so that you can impress your friends as well, because it is kind of easy when you work at it, right? Okay, I'm kind of loving that. So, I'm gonna put my cap on, right? Good housekeeping. Make sure that doesn't dry out anymore. Now I'm gonna go in with my green, okay? Oh yeah, remember that green was pretending to be red. There we go, there's green. Green, pretty nice. Now I'm gonna just try to fill in some of those spots. I'm gonna go over this again with water. I'm letting the green and red mix, and honestly that's what's happening here in real life. It's making a cool color. All right, probably the time I'm gonna be the most careful is kind of coloring around. Ooh, you know what I'm doing here? I just switched up my technique. I'm making the grass grow up and down. Why? Well, because grass does grow up and down. So it's actually kind of cool. I had marks left to right for the roses. Now I'm doing up and down for the grass, right? If my stroke, right, or my technique follows form, it will look more real life. So because grass grows up and down, my marks should be up and down. Look at that. Now, you're probably saying, oh, Jim, it's like way darker right here. I hear you. So let me put in some darker areas. Look at that. It's kind of working. And I say kind of because, you know, it's still marker. So I have to kind of forgive myself, you know, not to hold it to the standards of maybe watercolor. But the point is that you can have a really kind of fulfilling art experience with any materials. The only material I really struggle with is just plain pencil, because pencil is very unforgiving, where I like to kind of make a mess and almost like sculpt or paint with the materials. I really like to push them around. Now, I also might look like I'm rushing too, so this is the time where you can get quiet and really take your time, right? And I should say that that is called the zone, and the zone is a place and time where your brain kind of just shuts off and just lets your hands kind of take over, and you're not even really thinking about what you're doing. You're just doing. All right, last step. Water. Let's see. Whoa. Look at how it almost turns to paint. Almost. You know, but what is paint? Well, it's pigment and some kind of medium. Now that sounds very technical, but in oil paints, the medium is oil. In watercolor, the medium is water. So this is like water paints because it's pigment, which is coming from the marker, mixed with water. Now I'm being careful not to go over the red. I can try. Well, you know, I went over the red. It wasn't the end of the world. But I love that bright red. I'm trying to kind of preserve it, not muddy it up too much. Whoa. And like the more I scrub, the more it blends together. How do you know when to stop? Well, that's the age-old question. Many artists never really consider their art done. They just abandon it. I think that's a Picasso quote. You're never done, you just kind of abandon it. You know, so knowing when to stop is an art in itself. But I'm gonna call it there. We're right at the almost 14-minute mark. It might take you much longer than this, but I will say this is probably the most fun I've had using markers. And all I had to do was add a few tips and tricks along the way and some water. So quick recap, draw your line, find your horizon line, put stuff on it if it's there, not too much detail, right? And then just start filling in areas. If you don't know where to start with the dark and you work your way up to the light. I hope you have fun. I would love to see some of your original work as well. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.